Now, starting with Plato and Aristotle, context of Plato's philosophy. Plato's philosophy has to be understood in light of the prevailing streams of thoughts in the then Greek society. Sophists believed that knowledge is perception, which culminated in skeptic and nihilist thoughts because of the subjectivity associated with empiricism, conceived in strict sense. Thus, Plato, following the lines of his master Socrates, wanted to create an epistemological system free from the skeptic views of the sophists. Also, during the times of Plato, the permanence versus change debate was there in vogue. Like the early Buddhists, treated change alone as real and permanence as mere illusions. Parmenides, like Vedantists, was of the view that permanence alone is real and change is merely illusion. Plato attempts to reconcile these contrasting streams of thoughts through his theory of ideas. Plato attempts to find some solutions for the aforesaid epistemological and metaphysical problems. The theory of ideas. According to Plato, ideas are the only realities. Ideas represent the essence of many particular objects belonging to a certain class. For example, the idea of humanness is the essence of all particular human beings. In this sense, ideas can be understood as universal. Also, ideas can be understood as the eternal concepts which we come across in science and mathematics. For example, theorems in algebra and geometry are considered as eternal. We can generally say ideas are eternal forms, which is common to many particulars. The ideas are objects of knowledge which can be shown through reason or intuition. It is said that Plato's theory of ideas can be analyzed in epistemological, metaphysical, and mystical dimensions. In epistemological sense, it represents rationalism, which believes that one can acquire knowledge through reasoning that can than by depending on sense experiences. Metaphysically, this theory focuses on discussing the nature of reality, which is the abstract idea, and its relation with particular things we come across in daily lives. The concept of immortal soul, bondage, rebirth, and liberation play a vital role in Platonian theory of ideas. Thus, similar to the Indian philosophical system, this theory has some mystical aspects as well. Now, logical grounds for accepting Plato's theory of ideas. We see many particular things in the world which have common characteristics. These common characteristics enable us to classify these particulars under one class. For example, all humans have some common characteristics. This commonality can be explained only by accepting the reality of ideas like humanness, cowness, etc. We are able to meaningfully communicate about entities like dinosaurs which no longer exist. This is also only possible by accepting the reality of abstract ideas. Mathematics and science are about understanding and applying some eternal concepts in different particular situations. This implicates reality of concepts or ideas. Objects in this world are perishable and subjected to change. Such entities can never be the object of ideas. If we don't accept the reality of unchangeable abstract ideas, skepticism will be the result, which itself is philosophically contradictory position. We can see some higher concepts can subsume some lower concepts. This suggests that ideas are hierarchically arranged with the most supreme idea, that is idea of good, at the top. Epistemological aspects of theory of ideas, theory of reminiscence. Plato has formulated the recollection theory, that is theory of reminiscence, to explain the process of acquiring knowledge. Ideas are objects of knowledge. They aren't derived through sense experience. The knowledge of ideas pre-exists in the soul at birth as immortal souls coexist with ideas, that is forms in the transcendental world prior to birth. This knowledge gets faint in the empirical world as a result of ignorance of soul due to its affinity towards bodily senses. Knowledge is a recollection of what was experienced by soul in its disembodied state before birth. This is possibly only through reason. As long as a soul is in ignorance, it can be said to be in bondage and will transmigrate through lives until getting liberated. Liberation is possible only through contemplating the highest knowledge of the good, making use of intuitive reason. Here, one can see the epistemology of Plato is intertwined with his theories of reality and soteriology, that is theory of liberation. Plato's arguments against sophist dictum, knowledge is perception. In Theaetetus, Plato refutes sophist thoughts on the following grounds. Knowledge from perception is joint product of perceived objects and the perceiver. Nobody knows what the perceived object is in itself. Perception yields self-contradictory conclusions. What appears sour to a sick man is sweet to the healthy. Thus, same thing becomes sweet and sour at the same time. If knowledge is perception, there will be no distinction between truth and falsity. A madman and a dreamer imagine that they are always true. It is absurd to treat perception as knowledge and recollection of the same perception through memory as not knowledge. Now, metaphysical aspects of theory of ideas. Ideas which are abstract concepts or forms are the ultimate reality. The concretely existing particular entities which we come across in our daily lives are not ultimately real because they are always changing and we know them through experience. Since experience will result only in subjective judgment, the particular entities are objects of opinion, but not the objects of knowledge. The real object of knowledge are the ideas which are eternally immutable substances which can exist independently beyond space and time. Plato divides the world into a world of ideas and into a world of opinion. The reality, that is the idea, exists in the world of ideas, and the particulars exist in the world of opinion. That is the empirical world. Now, sensible world, that is the things, the world of things, they have appearance, they are immanent, they are in the process of becoming, that is changing. They are imperfect, they have many instances, and they are subjective, that is, they are dependent on perception. Now, the world of forms, that is ideas, they contain the realities, they are transcendent in nature, they have the being, that is eternal. They are perfect, they have one essence, that is an archetype, and they are objective, that is, they exist independent of the knower. Now, theory of divided lines. The theory of divided lines is used by Plato to contrast knowledge on one hand with belief or opinion on the other. Plato illustrates his theory by dividing the line into two parts. The upper stands for knowledge and the lower one for opinion. Knowledge is concerned with forms of universal or ideas. The divided line represents the metaphysical and epistemological perspective of Platonian philosophy. From metaphysical point of view, external ideas are ultimate realities and hence the ultimate object of knowledge. World of ideas transcendent the sense experience. World of opinion is changeable and governed by senses. From epistemological point of view, since sense experience cannot yield objective knowledge, Plato relegates sense perception to the level of opinions and does not qualify it as a source of knowledge. Now, how to relate the world of ideas, that is the world of particulars, and the world of opinion, that is the world of universals. Opposite. It is indeed a difficult task to relate the two entities with totally opposite characteristics. Plato falls to some analogies and certain theories to answer this. Plato himself was aware that it is difficult to bridge the two types of entities which within a strictly dualistic framework. The following are attempts made by Plato to explain the relation between universals and particulars. The first is the copy theory, that is, ideas are archetypes, ideas are original models, and things in the world are their copies. For example, all particular human beings are copies of the idea of humanness. Now, participation theory, particular participates in the universal. For example, all white objects participate in the idea of whiteness. This can be treated as the equivalent of Samvay Sambandh in Nyaya Vaisheshika system, which relates particulars with universal. Expression theory. Now, objects of this world are imperfect expressions of ideas, and hence the particulars are partially real. Particulars are imperfect expression of universals. Apart from these, through the analogy of cave, Plato attempts to give further insights into the relation between universals and particulars. Now, allegory of the cave. Plato uses a vivid allegory to differentiate between the universals and the particulars, knowledge and opinion, and the transcendental and the empirical world. Plato imagines a cave in which some prisoners are bound since childhood. They are in a position to see only shadows of the object that are outside the cave. They mistake the shadows as reality. One of the prisoners escapes from the cave and, in light of the sun, sees the real objects for the first time. The prisoner becomes aware of the difference between them and shadows. Also, Plato says that the escaped prisoner will face difficulty in convincing other prisoners about the nature of reality. The empirical world we see around is the world of opinions constituted by particulars. They aren't objects of knowledge. The real object of knowledge, that is, the ideas, reside in the transcendental world. Sensual experience cannot reveal the real nature of objects of knowledge. The freed philosopher is the friend of wisdom. The world of ideas represents the essence of good, beautiful, truth, justice, love, etc. Fire is the visible world. World of objects is also from the visible world. Chained prisoner is the human condition, and shadows or echoes are the opinions or illusions. Now, philosophical meaning of the analogy of cave. Ordinary human beings are reluctant to think beyond their normal perception, and they mistake experiences as the highest knowledge. Only when one starts making use of reasoning abilities, he can acquire the real knowledge. Darkness in the cave is the symbolism of ignorance, and the light in the world outside symbolizes knowledge. The freed prisoner represents the philosopher who has acquired the real knowledge and has understood that the world of opinion is not the actual reality. The prisoner in this cave still believes empirical world to be the ultimate reality. The philosopher cannot convince those people in ignorance since they are reluctant to accept that there can be something beyond experience. Also, the inability of prisoner to prove the reality of ideas to a commoner can be treated as sincere admission that it is difficult to establish clearly the relationship between universals and particulars. The sun, which is the source of all light, is nothing but the idea of good, which is at the top of all ideas. It is the source of all ideas and realities. A person who has seen sun directly is equivalent to one who is liberated by contemplating the highest idea of good. This is somewhat like a mystical knowledge, like Brahmagyan or Nirvana in Indian philosophical traditions. Now, Aristotle's criticism of Plato's philosophy. Aristotle was fundamentally against Plato's view that forms can exist independent of the knower as well as the particulars. Aristotle believed pure forms can exist only in thoughts and not in reality. Only the particular things which are constituted by matter and form can be treated as real. All the philosophical problems which we see in Plato's philosophy arises only because of giving an independent status to ideas. If we accept a separate entity C in form of humanness to account for commonality between two particulars human beings, say A and B, then we need a new entity D to account for the relation between a particular human being A and the humanness. This will result in a fallacy of infinite regress. Now, if we accept that only the static ideas are real, then the problem of change or becoming cannot be explained satisfactorily. Aristotle believes it can be explained only by treating particular things, which is a combination of matter and forms, as realities. Aristotle believes Plato's attempt to relate universals and particulars fail in the following respect. The first is we cannot say that particulars are copies of the universals because archetypes and copies should have some similarities. Here, particulars and universals are mutually exclusive. Particulars are concrete, changing, and objects of opinion. Universals are abstract, permanent, and objects of knowledge. We cannot say that many particulars participate in universals because if many particulars participate in universals, idea becomes divisible. This contradicts fundamentals of Plato's theory of ideas. Also, when one says particular participates in universal, the universal also becomes subjected to change since both of them constitute an organic whole. Moreover, this view becomes very close to Aristotle's philosophy, which says that both matter and form coexist. Plato's theory of reminiscence is also criticized by Aristotle for completely ignoring the role of sense experience in acquiring knowledge. Empiricists like Locke are of the view that no idea can be innate in the mind. Some of the medieval European philosophers also concur with Aristotle in saying that in the process of explaining the worldly object, Plato has accepted the existence of a number of elements which are independent of each other. They say that it is against the notion of Occam's razor, a concept used by Occam to separate philosophy from unnecessary elements. Now, Aristotle's solution to the above philosophical problem. Through his concept of substance, Aristotle brought the forms back from the world of ideas to the perceivable world. According to Aristotle, substance is that which has got independent existence. Neither matter nor form can exist independently. The reality, which is the substance, or is a combination of matter and forms. Concepts like pure form and pure matter are mere abstractions of thought. They are not realities. One can say that all particular things can be called as substance since they have an essential form which exists in a substratum called matter. That'll be all for Plato. We'll be discussing Aristotle in the next video.